first. So, listen, disappointing result for my Steelers. That's putting it mildly. But Philadelphia takes out Pittsburgh 27-13 in Philadelphia. Doing so, by the way, and we'll get into the specifics of what happened the second half later, but doing so in a second half where the Steelers ran 11 plays. The Philadelphia Eagles had 3 drives in a second half, a halftime in which they led by only 4 points. Just to put it right there. They burned 7 minutes 8 seconds on their first drive. Okay, next drive burned 6.5 minutes, 6 minutes 33 seconds to be exact. And the last drive, the game backed up at their own 3-yard line with Pittsburgh having all 3 timeouts and the 2-minute warning. They burned the last 10:29 out the game, 10.5 minutes, and Russell Wilson never got to touch the ball from there. I'm not saying we would have come back to win it. I'm just saying would have liked to see a little bit more from the defense. But I'll say this about Philadelphia because I've been a noted Eagles skeptic going back to the offseason. There's no question about that. I worried about whether this defense could be fixed after what I thought was a truly abysmal one last year, particularly in the pass game, just an inability to stop anything whatsoever in the pass game against other teams. Vic Fangio's fixed that. You talk about offensively. Here's what I want to give the Eagles a lot of credit on. And a guy I've been arguably more critical of than Nick Sirianni, and we'll get to Sirianni later in the segment, but Kellen Moore. So, and again, maybe this is just a 1-week fix. I don't know. Maybe he'll be able to appease A.J. Brown the rest of the season. But did you notice what Philadelphia is doing over the course of that football game? Listen, Pittsburgh's great at stopping the run. That's kind of Steelers football at its finest. Stop the run the football. But Saquon Barkley had 65 yards and 19 carries. He didn't bust any big runs. Matter of fact, I'd argue Jalen Hurts was more effective with his legs at times, at least it felt that way, than Saquon was. So you talk about that. You talk about the fact that in a week where everything's going right for the Eagles. They've won 9 games in a row. All the things that are going Philadelphia's way. The defense is balling. Jalen Hurts doesn't turn the football over. Saquon might be MVP. And A.J. Brown's got a problem with the passing game. It's like, oh my God, is the Eagles season about to come to an end the same way it did last year? Get off to a hot start, then there's some drama, then there's a complete and utter collapse, and now the coach's job is on the line. Let's see. Jalen Hurts in this game had 25 completions. 18 of those went to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So you could tell like a big portion of the game plan. Now, some of this is that I love me some Joey Porter Jr. with my Steelers. I think he's got a bright future ahead. I think he's got the physical capabilities, the intangibles. I mean, he's coached by Mike Tomlin. That doesn't exactly hurt you as a defensive player, but he's having a rough stretch of football right now, and there's no question. A.J. Brown absolutely cooked him for 60 minutes. There's just no other way around it. Devontae Smith did his thing as well. That's what the Steelers did for 60 minutes, or the Eagles did for 60 minutes over the course of that football game. But I give Philadelphia credit. And it's why I won't reveal Bryce's best 10 until Wednesday. We do that segment on Wednesdays. But Philadelphia, from what I've seen through the first 15 weeks of the season, 14 games that they've played, they're the most complete team in football. Minnesota, you can make that case as well, to a lesser degree. Pittsburgh, Kansas City. I'll get to Buffalo. I think Buffalo's great. I don't know if they're as well-rounded as some of these other teams. It feels like more of a Josh Allen superhero stunt show at times. But Philadelphia can beat you 17 different ways, it feels like. Jalen Hurts can run. Jalen Hurts can throw the football if he has got a good pocket, which is often because Philadelphia's offensive line is phenomenal. Amazing. You lose Jason Kelce, who was one of the greatest centers ever, and it seemed like the offensive line has in some ways gotten better. Some of that's Saquon Barkley, but give credit to Philly, especially their coaching staff in that regard as well. They've got one of the 5 best receivers in the sport, A.J. Brown. They've got a guy I've called the best number 2 receiver in the NFL, Devontae Smith, with respect to guys like Jalen Waddle and Cooper Kupp. Devontae Smith's a Heisman winner. He has been successful in the league. Okay, they got a good tight end, Goddard. Defensively, matter of fact, we could show you what they did in the second half against Pittsburgh. Great graphic here that my man Alfred put together. I mean, Pittsburgh did nothing. 163 total yards for the Steelers, and they had the ball for 20 minutes. Philadelphia literally doubled Pittsburgh in time of possession. And then we could show you what Philadelphia's done over the course of the season. Let's see. They give up the fewest points, fewest yards, fewest pass yards, 7th fewest rush yards, and they are near it in the top 10 in terms of turnovers forced. So they can take the ball away from you. You don't get a lot of yards against them. They don't give up a lot of points. The secondary's been excellent. Getting DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell has helped tremendously. Okay. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, the pass rush. Interior, Jalen Carter committed a terrible penalty, but Jalen Carter abused Pittsburgh over the course of that game. Steelers couldn't do anything in the run game, which is really where they've excelled, putting Russell Wilson in positions to where he doesn't have to make big tight window throws on 3rd and 9. Love Russell. That's not the player he is at this stage of his career. And so you talk about the multiple different ways. If you told me, let's say Philadelphia. Okay, let's say for the sake of argument, they get the 2 seed, because it feels like the NFC North winner, even with Detroit losing, it feels like the NFC North winner is probably going to get the 1 seed. Philadelphia very well may. Let's just say the playoffs hold as is. Philly's the 2 seed. If you told me their first game, Philadelphia played an opponent who was completely outmatched, and they won 38-17. Yeah, I could see that. And if you told me they won a game in the divisional round against a better team, obviously, one of the final 4 teams in the NFC. If you told me they won 17-14, wouldn't be surprised either. Because that's what they can do defensively. Offensively, they can, again, yesterday scored 27, but they were grinding the clock, using the run game. Jalen Hurts, play action. He had the turnover early, but by and large played relatively clean football. No, I mean, I guess the only question is, and I still hold this question because we've seen it multiple times, even in this win streak, is these 4th down calls by Nick Sirianni. Do we trust him? But I give Sirianni credit. I kind of put him on the spot last week on Wednesday's show. My thing was, okay, you've been a successful coach of this league. Nobody's going to deny that. At the same time, there's 2 categories of coaches. I talked about this last week. There's schemers. I call them schemers. You talk about guys like Kyle Shanahan, Andy Reid, guys like that, Mike McDaniel with the Dolphins. And then there's motivators / culture builders, Mike Tomlin, Dan Campbell, guys like that, Jim Harbaugh. I think Sean McVay is like a healthy medium schemer who is also a culture builder. You can say the same to a certain degree about Andy Reid, who's the best coach of football. Sirianni's clearly not a schemer. Okay, we saw him have to give up play calling duties his first season as the head coach in Philly to, in my mind, a brilliant offensive mind is Shane Steichen, who's working with nothing at the quarterback position in Indianapolis. But he had to relinquish play calling duties. So at that point, then you have to become a culture guy. And with the A.J. Brown fiasco, how is he going to be able to reel it back in a way that obviously respect to him, but he couldn't do that last year when Philly started 10-1 and then just fell apart, went 1-6 down the stretch, and then you can make a case quitting their playoff loss to Tampa. Chaotic week, didn't panic. We're playing a great Steelers team. We're at home. We feel like we've got some matchups that we can expose, and they did for 60 minutes. I mean, Pittsburgh, we got the touchdown with Russ to Freiermuth, but once the fumble there in the 3rd quarter after Philadelphia went up by 7, I'm like, this team is not built to play from behind against a team like Philly that could just grind the clock, keep the ball away from you. And listen, for my Steelers, there's no reason to panic. If there's any reason to worry, it's TJ Watt. But again, according to this report, Brooke Pryor from ESPN has said that Mike Tomlin is optimistic about TJ Watt's availability this Saturday against Baltimore, which is, I can make a case, the game for the Steelers. You win that, the division is over. You got the AFC North. You got a at least one home game in the first round of the playoffs, rather. What do you do from there? We'll see. But the big question for Pittsburgh, and this is going to be huge, is that bad man number 14 back? Is GP? Is George Pickens back? If Pickens is back, Steelers are going to be just fine. No reason to panic. If not, could be a problem against the Ravens. But really, really impressed by Philadelphia. Listen, I watched that game as a Steelers fan. It's like, I don't think this is a Tomlin problem. I don't think this is. I mean, special teams was good. Boswell hit his kicks. Russell, there was a turnover in the 3rd quarter, but Russell, I didn't expect to be Superman. He's not that player anymore. And so clearly Philadelphia showed themselves to be better than Pittsburgh in many facets of the game. And I'm not saying they're the best team in the NFL. I think they're the most complete. I think they're the one with the fewest weaknesses. You could say Kansas City, but my thing really with Kansas City is they turn on that switch. They flip that switch. We'll get to Mahomes later in the show as it relates to his injury. I'm very impressed with what I saw from the Philadelphia Eagles. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.